First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody and all our listeners, everybody, to the first episode of the Washed Athlete podcast. This is just a group of college friends right here talking about anything and everything that we are interested in, and hopefully you will be too. A lot of us here are former athletes and one actual athlete in college. A lot of us are into Marvel, a lot of sports, whether it be football, basketball, soccer, and also just anything under the sun that we might find interesting that you might too. So the members of this podcast are myself, Peter. Then we have Justin, Raj, Andres, and Jacob. You'll hear plenty of them throughout the rest of the podcast. So yeah, let's just hop right into it. I think that's probably the best way to do it. Um, so for this week, it's week 16 of the 2021 NFL season. It's been really, really interesting so far. Um, and I think I want to start off by talking about my New York Giants because, good God, they are so bad.
Fly, Eagles, fly.
I hate you, Raj. Okay, so let's talk about how bad the Giants are. They are so unbelievably bad. I've been a Giants fan my whole life, and it hurts a lot to watch them lose 34-10 against the Eagles in Philadelphia. Like, it's painful, and I don't know how much longer I can keep going.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair assessment of where the Giants are at right now. You have
Sounds
an
about right.
opportunity. Yeah, you have an opportunity to kind of make a stand, like kind of salvage the season with like a win against a division rival. Like the Eagles are kind of going up a little bit and making a playoff push, and to just play that poorly. Like it's 3-3 at halftime, and then just to light up 30 plus points in the second half to lose that game is kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, I think that's the part that hurts the most is because like it was a decent game, at least by the defense, because they're able to hold them to 3, and then it's just like, we give up, we're done, no more playing, and then they just lose by 30. It's like, guys, what are we doing?
Well, you drafted a good linebacker out of Georgia in Azeez Ojulari. You got a pretty good receiver in Kadarius Toney that you just drafted. What do you think the Giants need right now?
They've needed an offensive line. Yes, Raj, you're absolutely right. They have needed an offensive line for 10 years, Jacob. They draft like these kind of flashy players, whatever, that they think, oh, maybe this will be able to turn the franchise around. But I think they really just need to like get into the trenches and just get some guys that can move bodies. Because I don't know how they expect an incredible running back like Saquon Barkley to carry a team on his back, or a below average quarterback right now in Daniel Jones to try and turn a franchise around. It's just not going to happen on their own. Like, you need to be able to have guys that can do the dirty work, that can step up and can just maul people on that line.
That's true. I know. Sorry.
Yeah, how do you feel that Lane Johnson has more touchdowns than Kadarius Toney and Kenny Galladay combined?
What are you going to say, Jacob?
I was just going to ask what you think about Andrew Thomas and see if he's panned out. I mean, I know you guys got him just a couple years ago. Left tackle.
I mean, he's actually been pretty good. I think he's been like, his first year was a little bit rough, but I think he's actually developed into a pretty good tackle. The only issue is that he's one player and we need 5 of him. So it's a little rough right now.
Do you guys have your draft pick this year?
We do. We also have the Bears one. So hopefully we can turn those into some good picks. But I've been saying that for the past 10 years. So let's hope.
You know, I definitely think that's just like not a great situation to be in, especially like knowing that you have to draft two linemen essentially just to keep the team afloat, and you're gonna have Danny Dimes for probably another year. So like you're gonna have to get him some help eventually.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's really gonna be tough. But yeah, so I think, Justin, did you want to talk about the Chargers game? Because speaking of messes, oh god.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like my biggest takeaway from the NFL week is just how badly the Chargers dropped the ball in this game. I mean, if you look at the standings now with Dolphins beating the Saints, the Chargers are on the outside kind of looking into the playoff picture, which is pretty embarrassing considering where they're at. I mean, I heard a lot of news networks coming out and being like, oh yeah, the Chargers are the Chiefs' biggest threat, talking about how Justin Herbert's arrived, how this team's really turned it around. And you go in to Houston, they're 3-10, I believe, and then they're starting Davies Mills, who like hasn't looked great this year. They barely have any talent on that team. And to lose by 12, and it wasn't like a down to the wire, like, oh, they got cheap points. Like they lost that football game, and to just drop the ball that bad, and now they're gonna have to play tough these next 2 weeks against to compete against teams like the Dolphins, who are playing out of their minds right now. I mean, they've won tons of games just straight, and I don't see a picture, honestly. I don't see a situation where I think the Chargers are gonna make the playoffs, which I think if I had said that 3-4 weeks ago, everyone would have called me crazy.
I probably would have called you crazy
yeah.
for sure, especially after they beat my Pittsburgh Steelers. It was a tough loss there.
Yeah, I mean, they're just one of those teams where it's like they're like a flip of a coin. Like you really never know which Chargers team you're gonna get that week. Because like they could be absolute world beaters and beat the piss out of the Chiefs or lose to Davis Mills and the Texans. Like there's no in between with this team. It's like they're either winning by 50 or losing by 20 to teams that they shouldn't. Like it's so weird watching this team.
It kind of feels like despite the fact that you bring in a new head coach to the team, they're still having
It's
trouble.
still the Chargers. Yeah.
They're still the Chargers at the end of the day. And I don't know. I just think it's crazy to think that this team that was so promising in the beginning is now. I think I haven't checked 100%, but I'm pretty much sure they're actually on the outside looking in.
That's nuts. That's actually nuts.
And I mean, they've had a tough schedule, no doubt. I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, they've got some good wins in there. But I think just like the Texans. I mean, they got the Broncos and Raiders left on their schedule, which those are not easy games.
Yeah.
Because I think both teams are still alive in the playoff hunt. So you're gonna play two like playoff atmosphere games just to hope to get into the playoffs.
It'll be a
It's
tough road ahead.
atmosphere. But I think they got a bright future in Justin Herbert. I did think when he got drafted, he probably should have been the third quarterback drafted. But I mean, if you look at how he's played, you can make an argument that he might be, maybe even the first quarterback drafted. Even though Joe Burrow just had an insane performance against their rival, the Ravens, their division rival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And talking about first quarterbacks drafted, Jacob, what are your thoughts on this Colts-Cardinals game that happened on Christmas Day?
That looked to be about as big of a playoff atmosphere as it possibly could have been. I mean, although they aren't in the same conference, so they couldn't play in the playoffs unless it's the Super Bowl, I thought that game had the energy of a legitimate playoff game and was extremely competitive. I think the Colts are one of the scariest teams in the NFL right now, especially considering they were without the majority of their offensive linemen. If I recall correctly, their only starting offensive lineman was their right tackle. And they had like even backups injured. Jonathan Taylor is a legitimate candidate for the MVP this season. Carson Wentz, slightly hate to say it, but I mean he is playing well enough for the Colts to win. And the defense, I mean they're playing well enough to win. I think the Colts with that run game is one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL. And then you got the Cardinals, who were extremely promising, starting off 7-0, but the loss of DeAndre Hopkins for the foreseeable future, I'm not sure what's going to happen with them. I think that they are clearly a talented team, but I think that, and they control their own destiny. But I'm not sure what's going to, their outcome will be by the end of this regular season and come playoff time.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty well. I mean, you look at the Colts; they start off really bad, and they're just winning all these games. And you see them lose against the Bucs, and you're like, okay, maybe they're not there yet. But then they come out and play against a really good Arizona team. I mean, I think it's really easy to point to just Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins being studs, and then you have like James Conner on the running back, especially with the injury of their starting running back. And
Chase Edmonds was back that game.
He was back that game, yeah.
Yeah.
And you just see this offense, like the Tide power, but like that Cardinals defense is legit. And Indy played them hard. And I think what you see here is like obviously Jonathan Taylor is going to be great at this point. Their offensive line's really good, even with the injuries. Jonathan Taylor still averaged 4 yards a carry, which is like decent, especially against a good defense. But then when you can have Carson Wentz making that big time throw that he makes into the back of the end zone, I mean, that's one of the best throws in the NFL season. And if Carson Wentz can not turn the ball over and play smart football, I mean, this team could legitimately win an NFL championship. And I don't think that's a hot take.
I agree with everything you said, but I don't know if that was like one of the best throws in the NFL season. I can't like there. I'm gonna have to think on that one, but I'm not sure about that there, Justin. I don't know about that one.
I think you gotta look at that. His hips are facing away from the ball, and he drops that right over top of that safety. I mean, I think it's definitely up there. I'm not gonna say it's the best one. I got to see them all on like a clip, but it's definitely I think it's one of the best ones for sure. And if Carson Wentz is playing well, which right now, based on certain metrics, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I think if he's playing really good, this Colts team is going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Andres, you definitely had some good quarterback play in your game. Kansas City, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so before I say anything, I would like to preface my football knowledge is currently limited, but I have been getting into it a lot more and more recently. And so, yeah, I mean, right now you have Patrick Mahomes and Big Ben. Big Ben, I mean, he's a legend for the Steelers, of course, but he's getting old, and it's been showing. It has been showing.
He's washed.
He's
washed.
It has been showing. He is washed. I mean, great. Like he was great in his day, but his time's definitely coming to an end, and it's like a crazy juxtaposition in that, like with Big Ben and Patrick Mahomes. Like Big Ben's just his time's coming up, and the Steelers this season have been one word. Well, just the way I would describe it is just interesting. Their season has been interesting. I don't know. I mean, Jacob, like what do you have to say about your Steelers?
I have a lot to say about the Steelers.
Here we go.
Not a lot of it is. A lot of it's not that good. I think that I'd like to first start off by saying that Mike Tomlin gets a lot more hate than he honestly deserves.
True.
I think that he has a roster that has been injured a decent amount during this season. I mean, they've lost. They don't have Stephon Tuitt for seemingly the entire season. He had 11 sacks last year, and they lost Bud Dupree to free agency, and he had 8 sacks last year. So that's 19 sacks that they just don't have to their defense, which although has it's very a high profile and highly thought of defense, that hurts. And then you have an offensive line that is still very young and needs to grow together, along with a lot of characters, you could say, on the at the skill positions on offense, specifically Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool.
Definitely the right one.
TikTok boys.
TikTok.
Yeah,
Corvette.
He's been pretty frustrating, especially Chase Claypool these past couple weeks with him deciding not ability. As much as he should for wasting time in a crucial moment of a game. But I think that the Steelers, the difficult thing about being a Steelers fan is that the standard is the standard. So that means the Steelers will not try and tank. They'll always try to do well. But with that in mind, you got to know that it's going to be tough to get those higher draft picks and get players that you would want.
Yeah, and I think even with it being late in the season, it almost begs the question about whether it's worth it to just lose these next 2 games and focus on their draft picks because, there's a lot of teams right now that are 7-7, I guess it's like 7-8, and like right around that range. And it's like if you're the Steelers and you can just fall to 7-9-1, that could move you up in the draft 5 or 6 spots. And I don't know if drafting a quarterback's right in this draft for the Steelers, but just getting overall more talent and then hoping to get a splash quarterback or pick up someone in free agency and make a trade, something like that. Because clearly Big Ben is not coming back for another year. and
Better not.
yeah, he better not.
Ooh.
But I mean, I think Big Ben gets a lot of hate for this season for sure. But also, I think entering the season, everyone knew that Big Ben wasn't going to be good. He was coming out for another ride, and even in this game, there's so many issues going down 23-0. I mean, he only throws one interception, so I mean, there's a lot more issues that are bigger than Big Ben, even at this point. And you're asking him to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. Like, you're just not going to get it done.
Yeah, Jacob, who would you want to be quarterback of the Steelers next season?
Realistically, or dream.
Realistically.
Don't you dare say Aaron Rodgers. I swear to God.
Realistically speaking.
Well, Peter, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but of course I was going to say Aaron Rodgers. Maybe even Russell Wilson, because it doesn't seem like things are working out in Seattle right now. Realistically, though, I feel as if the Steelers could, benefit through going through a transitional year. Trying to maintain the standard with maybe Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins at quarterback, and then get a guy in the next NFL draft. I don't believe this quarterback class is as strong as the other ones have been in the past, and I think that maybe wait it out a year. Or I know a lot of people at Pitt are big on Kenny Pickett.
Thank you. I was gonna ask you about this, but you already took it out of my mouth. So go ahead. What's your thoughts on because there's a lot of reports about the Steelers usually getting players from Pitt, especially considering they watch him every Saturday.
Well, I think Kenny Pickett, he had a pretty good year. I mean, you can make an argument that he benefited from having apparently the best receiver in the country in Jordan Addison.
Oh my God.
But I mean, he clearly had a good year. He put up good numbers. I mean, he put himself and his team in a good position to succeed, and I think he should get applauded for that. But at the same time, this is how many years has he been at school? Could one of you guys that's bigger? 6 years. It took him 6 years to have one good year. He didn't transfer. It's not like he didn't get many opportunities as like a Joe Burrow did. It took him this long to get to finally produce, and it's hard to trust something like that. Joe Burrow was different because Joe Burrow played against the highest level of competition, and he simply did not have an opportunity to play beforehand. Kenny Pickett, can't really say the same for him, but I hope for the best for him. But if I were the Steelers, I'd be very hesitant to drafting a guy like Kenny Pickett.
I think talking before we recorded this, it was just like, I don't know if it's in the Steelers' best interest to keep someone who's been in Pittsburgh for the last couple years, probably like 5 or 6 years, keeping him in the same city. Probably better for I think it's probably in Pickett's best interest to just go to a different team, kind of start working on that NFL career outside of the city of Pittsburgh. Especially, I think it'd just be weird playing in Hayden Stadium every day because that's where the Panthers play. So just constantly returning to that space. I don't know if it's in his career best interest, but
yeah, I mean, the last time we drafted a relatively notable Pitt Panther was James Conner, and loved the guy to death. Got his jersey, but I mean, he experienced a lot of injuries. I mean, he has a remarkable story, but he experienced a lot of injuries, and now he's he's been playing very well at Arizona, but I'm not so sure if the Steelers should, continue to, draft as many players from the Pitt Panthers as they, do. But you know what? That's why I'm not an NFL GM. I'm not an NFL executive because, that's just my opinion, and I'm not sure.
Well, so we can move off of Jacob's anti-Kenny Pickett agenda real quick, and we can move on to, I guess, a quarterback that he does like, even though he should hate, in Mac Jones. So, Raj, do you want to start talking about that game?
That game, the one thing I took away from it is just the inconsistency of the Bills. Because in fantasy, I have Josh Allen as my quarterback in one of my leagues, and the one thing I've noticed is how inconsistent the Bills are. Because I don't know if the win was the reason why they lost to the Patriots that one game, but the Bills have just been so inconsistent this season that they're probably shooing for the playoffs. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah,
Like,
they're
I'm
leading their division right now.
yeah. So
if
like
it's
the
not
Bills,
locked, it's fairly much. I think it's fairly locked at this point.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Bills are like a shoe in for the playoff right now, and like they have their spot. But looking at how they're playing right now, like I don't think they'll be making it out the first round. Honestly, like the Patriots, on the other hand, they have Mac Jones who's young. I mean, anything could happen with them. But the issue with that is Belichick. Like, is Mac Jones the future for the Patriots and Belichick? Because looking at like that statistic I saw on like NFL memes or something, it was like Belichick without Brady, he was like he has a losing record with every like statistic. So is
Okay.
is is
Did you
is
just
Belichick
quote NFL
what?
memes
Did I
as
just
a
quote NFL memes?
source?
I just
Did you,
did.
did you
I just
seriously
did.
just take a statistic from NFL memes? Is like,
Yeah. Yeah,
Mr.
it's a true statistic.
It's a trustworthy source.
It
Wow.
is. Dude, it's a
Yes,
true
this is canon.
I mean, it's true,
Wow.
but like still like is the page is the I don't want to say anything about the Patriots dynasty being done or anything, but it's like it's looking like it's just gonna be a clash between the Bills and the Patriots. Everything, but in my opinion, I think the Bills have the edge on them, and the only reason why the Patriots won that one game was just because Josh Allen couldn't throw the ball to Stephon Diggs. Or
Okay,
I think
fair.
that
no, go ahead.
looking at the records, there is a world in which the Bills do not make the playoffs. I mean, it's unlikely. They got the Falcons and Jets on their schedule, so like I'm not holding my breath. But if they were to lose those last two games, they could miss the playoffs. I think it's just that roller coaster ride, and like what conditions can they win in? I mean, I know that those blizzard conditions they play the Patriots, and even though it was a close game, like everyone left that game kind of going, "Wow, Bill Belichick just like outplayed the entirety of that Bills team," and they're just kind of an up and down team, and I don't know if you want that. And with some of the losses they have on their schedule, they've lost to the Patriots once, they've lost to the Colts, they've lost to the Bucks. Kind of begs the question about like they've lost to the Titans. Like, can they beat these these teams that are going to be in the playoffs? Because their only signature win I'm really looking at is the Chiefs early in the year when they were going through their issues. And then other than that, I don't think I see any big time wins other than the Patriots this past weekend.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've learned. Sorry.
you can go. You can go.
I mean, as a Steelers fan, I've learned to never, doubt or bet against Tom Brady, and also never bet against Bill Belichick because I've experienced a lot of heartache for doing that. Um, so I'm not sure. I mean, it's a good question. Mac Jones is just a rookie. He's put up fantastic numbers at this point for a rookie quarterback. He's been very precise, but I'm not sure. I think it's a good question.
Yeah, but that just begs the question: is Mac Jones just a system quarterback, or is he really that good?
He's a system quarterback. He's a system quarterback. He's a system quarterback. He's not as good as Kenny Pickett.
Wow.
I guess,
Yeah,
I guess
I
the big thing will
disagree
be
with
seeing it in the
that.
playoffs.
I very much so disagree with that. I think Mac Jones is his preparation is like any other quarterback. I think I wouldn't say that, but he goes very into depth with his preparation. Puts his team in a very good position to succeed. He's not going to wow you with his athleticism, although I believe he ran a 4.8, but he's a good solid quarterback. And I mean he's doing better than any of the other rookies. That's a fact. That is just
Well,
I guess we'll just have to see. I mean, I'm assuming the Patriots and the Bills are both going to make the playoffs, so I think we'll have to see in that first round game what the Patriots are really made of, and what Mac Jones can do. 'Cause, I mean, I think he threw 2 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken, this past weekend, and that's something that you can't throw 2 interceptions in an NFL playoff game. It's unlikely you go home with the win. So,
And
nope.
yeah, I mean, not to shit on Mac Jones or anything, because I know Jacob's a little sensitive about it, but is he really gonna make it that far in the playoffs? Is the question. Is Belichick really gonna bring back his dynasty with Mac Jones?
I mean, I think so. And why? Like, what's the hate for Mac Jones? I mean, you couldn't be hating on, Trevor Lawrence, even though I think he's going to have a fantastic career. Zach Wilson, player I've never been extremely high on because of his level of competition.
It's
You
the
could be
Jets and the
hating,
Jags.
you could
We
be
don't
hating on
really
Justin Fields. Could be hating on Trey Lance, even though he hasn't gotten an opportunity. You could be hating on any of the other quarterbacks. Why Mac Jones?
because the Jets, the Jags, and the Bears suck.
But why hate on Mac Jones out of all the quarterbacks? in the NFL in general, not just rookies, just out of all the quarterbacks. He's
Of all the
played well so
QBs.
far.
Just because I know it pisses you
like,
off.
Look at the receivers on the Patriots. Who's good?
Here we go.
Who's like a good receiver on the Patriots?
N'Keal Harry.
Nelson Aguilar.
Hey, don't talk about my Philly boy like that.
Okay.
Goes
Yeah,
back from
Nelson
that.
Aguilar.
Not good at football.
Okay.
Nelson Butterfingers.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I don't think I
Jacob,
need to say anything else.
you're kind of talking about Mac Jones like he's a superhero, but for me personally, I don't think he is a hero. On the other hand, but at transition, for context, this past weekend, all of us saw Spider-Man No Way Home. And I think now would probably be a pretty good time to get our thoughts on everything because I know Andres is probably hanging out to dry right now because we've just been talking about football for the past like 30 minutes. And I know he has been dying to talk about this.
Yes. Andres, you can stop itching your neck. We know you've been fiending. It's okay.
Oh, do I have a lot to say about this movie? I mean, wow, already I was just blown away because growing up, Spider-Man was like my hero. Like he was my favorite hero. Like first superhero movies I watched were the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and oh man, just seeing him back, just in the MCU, seeing him back in the Spider-Man suit and in the MCU, like combining two things that just I love. Like it was incredible. It was fantastic. Andrew Garfield too. Like I think he was overhated. Like sure, like he was too cool to play Peter Parker because Peter Parker's supposed to be a nerdy guy, but as a Spider-Man, I think he's arguably the best. Like just purely Spider-Man. Like he's got that humor, he's got that swagger, he's just like his web slinging scenes, the suit. I think Andrew Garfield's a great Spider-Man, and I think he was one of the high points of the movie. And I know Justin might agree with that point.
Yeah, for sure. I think I left the theater going. I mean, obviously, Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland do an excellent job, but I think Andrew Garfield stole every single scene he was in. I loved him as kind of that, like he was spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh Jesus!
To like mention real quick, but I think that you can see kind of like his defeat after losing Gwen in his movie, and I think he really like takes that pain, but also like he's that guy who's like hugging all the Spider-Man because he's like, yeah, this is great. Like I have brothers, and he brings that good energy to it. And I think all the actors are great. Like I think the older Tobey Maguire also like holds up really well. But I just think like Andrew Garfield for me just stole every scene, and whether it's not he's like cleaning cobwebs off the ceiling of Ned's grandmother's house or anything, I just think he does a great job. And I think overall the movie it delivered on almost everything it promised. I think it over-promised and over-delivered at the same time. And I just don't know if they could have produced a better movie. Like with what was going on. I mean, I think most of us agree here that Endgame and Infinity War might be the only movies better than it. And that's saying a lot because this movie had only really two movies building up to it versus the other ones. And I just think it's a great job by Sony and Marvel like putting this film together because there's all that behind the scenes noise about would they really come together? Would they be able to produce this big time movie? I know they had different deadlines. The movie was rushed. There was like they reshot a lot of scenes. But at the end of the day, you come out with an emotionally jarring movie that I think the only things that I can really criticize, and I think I'm definitely more critical than some other people on this pod. But I think the only things I can complain about are pacing issues in the beginning. But I think you go into Act 3 of that movie and I sent the video in one of our group chats today, and just seeing all three Spider-Men like on one screen, like web slinging around each other, like acting as a team is one of the coolest moments in MCU, like probably a top 5 scene.
Yeah, I agree. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Justin. I also was critical of the beginning. I felt like while it was a lot of stuff happened in the beginning, I felt like it also it wasn't as engaging. I did like the addition of Matthew Murdock from Daredevil. I actually just started that series over this
I've been
break.
screaming for you to start that forever.
It's been so good. It's been really good. I'm in the second season right now. Highly recommend. Um, wish somebody could have told me to watch it sooner, but you know what? Very good show. But no, I thought that the Spider-Man movie was fantastic. I thought I have Infinity War, Endgame, and Winter Soldier ahead of that movie in that exact order. I think that if the beginning had been slightly better, it probably would have been ahead of Winter Soldier. But I feel that the Infinity War is just the best movie in the MCU period, start to finish. And then I think that Endgame, well, there won't be any in theater experience that can top Endgame. I don't know if there has been one. I haven't seen every movie, so I can't make that call. But I don't think there has been one. I don't think there is one currently, and I don't think there will be one. So I think that's the two reasons why I have it ahead of that. But um, it's almost as if the Spider-Man had been working together for years. How considering how strong their chemistry appeared on screen.
Yeah, I really do agree with you, Jacob, on like I feel like one of the big things that you're talking about where it's like Infinity War, it just had like I mean, it was hard for like No Way Home to really come even close to that, and the fact that it did really says a lot because when you have what was it like 18 movies of build up versus I guess technically you have two movies of build up and then I guess now what would that be another five movies because of Andrew and Toby's movies. But it's just like the fact that it had as much of an impact on everybody as it did with that very little run up and basically half a movie to do it because they had to set up everything at the beginning. That's that first half. That's where you kind of get into those pacing issues. But then once it gets going, the fact that they could just soar and they just took every single idea possible and just ran with it to the best that it could possibly be. It really was incredible. I remember turning around and watching Justin just bawling at one point, and I was like, "Yep, it's this kind of movie." It really was incredible, like seeing all of them together. And I will say, it does kind of suck that we didn't get that experience like an Infinity War or an Endgame, where it wasn't really spoiled as much. Because I feel like going into it, we all kind of knew that Andrew and Toby were gonna be in the movie,
For sure, Hollywood's worst kept secret.
Exactly. So it's like it does kind of suck that we did kind of miss that part where it's like the imagine if you didn't know going into that movie that Toby and Andrew were going to be in the movie and then getting that first reveal. That would have been like that might have been able to top a lot of moments from Infinity War and Endgame. I'm not gonna lie. That had the potential to do that, but it's just like just the way the cookie crumbles, the way the ball rolls, like, you know what? We'll take what we can get at this point. We saw them on screen at least once, so we'll see.
Yeah, there's definitely that type of like they needed to get the box office to hit, especially with the pandemic. I mean, this thing still
Yeah.
cracked all kinds of records, and the pandemic's still going on. So I think they definitely wanted to like sell the movie in the trailers a little bit. And I think, I mean, it was not like it wasn't even like a leak from Hollywood. It was not a secret. It was right in the trailers that like Doc Ock and all these villains were showing up. And I just think about like what this could have been if
Yeah.
kind of way to hide everyone. And you see Doc Ock like come in, and you're just like, holy heck! Like, how did he even like get there?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, that would have been cool. But I still think like they show everything. I don't even think this movie you need to really see the other Spider-Man movies. I mean, they're helpful, but I mean, besides the plot about Peter needing the spell so that his friends can like have a normal life, I think the movie's a pretty good standalone. I mean, they'll even mention like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, like he still says something about how he couldn't save Gwen and how that was a big deal. And they talk about Toby and like his like him and his best. They had the little exchange with Ned where he's like, yeah, I had to kill my best friend or whatever. My best friend tried to kill me, and then Ned gets all freaked out, and Ned's telling like Tom Holland Spider-Man like, oh, I'd never kill you. But like they do explain their past universe Spider-Man, and I think that like you don't need to be an expert. You didn't need to even grow up with the old Spider-Man films for it to be a really, really enjoyable movie.
Yeah, I think you're right. They did a really good job of like not just kind of throwing their characters in there and then having everybody kind of just be like, well, what's the point of them being there? They served a purpose to the plot. They were able to kind of show their character and how they actually have like changed over time, and how like for Toby, I think he becomes almost this like not father figure necessarily, but he's definitely the older, wiser one out of the group. Andrew, where he kind of like briefly mentions like a darker path that he went on, like, and that makes sense. Like if you think about it, where it's like he talks about how Gwen died because he couldn't save her and he stopped pulling his punches. Like that's a pretty that line of logic makes sense that he would kind of start to go down like a path of being a true vigilante, and for Tom to kind of just be there and be this like very clearly youthful, like almost boy compared to the other two like grown men that are in the room with him, but then they still see kind of like that passion to be Spider-Man, but then also see like, oh, this kid is going through our origin story right now. It might be a little bit different to ours, but he is at that point where he needs kind of some older figures to like really show him like, hey, you need to go on the right path because you don't want to stray down the path of darkness, essentially.
I think you just said it perfectly. Like, this is an origin story. It's like a second origin story for Tom Spider-Man, I guess you'd say, because he really transitioned from the next Iron Man or Iron Boy, whatever, into like actually being Spider-Man in this movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you said second origin story, and I mean, it really is the first. I mean, they just like Tom Holland Spider-Man's pretty much. I was like, yeah, I got bit by a spider. Like, this is cool. I can do this now. And like in this movie, it's where they deliver the "with great power comes great responsibility" line, and it's where he really learns to put his morals up on the line. And I mean, I think they succeed at it.
yeah, it was probably one of the best movie experiences ever. Again, I don't think anything's coming close to Infinity War Endgame, but damn, was I not expecting it to be this good. Hey.
Yeah,
Raj,
like that's great.
100%. What?
I was gonna say, what are your thoughts about this movie?
My thoughts are, well, on the car ride there, I have Andres saying, I'm trying to go into this movie with zero expectations, but I can't. So I did the complete opposite and went in with no expectations, and I was completely blown away because I did rewatch like a couple of the old Spider-Man movies before watching this. Andres, did you know that?
I did not
Uh,
actually.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is like, I think I could say this, but Andres and I were roommates, so like, it was actually like 3 a.m. and what the Spider-Man movie came on the TV, and you're like, what the hell?
Oh
Do you
yeah.
remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
then
yep.
I kind of went on a rabbit hole, rewatched some like plot holes about that movie and everything to like kind of like so like I did pick up on like some things that did happen in the movie, like whenever they would do their little like quips or shit, like whenever like what was that one line? When Doc Ock and Peter met again and he said just try and do better, like that one line, I remember that from being from Spider-Man 2. So like I went into the movie zero expectations and I was just shocked at like how good it was. Like literally like what 20 minutes of the movie, the Matt Murdock reveal, Peter was sitting next to me and this man just started going crazy.
I didn't want to be that guy to start screaming during it because like no one really like I could tell people like knew that was Matt Murdock, but like they weren't really excited. But I was over the moon when I finally saw him there. It was like because I watched all 3 seasons and I have been banging this drum for years that Daredevil is probably it's not probably it's the best superhero show ever, hands down.
Yeah.
And if we are no, Jacob, you're not even Arrow doesn't even touch Daredevil.
Wow.
You are
Nah,
not
I
even coming
disagree.
at me with this. I will
I disagree.
fight you to
Oh.
the death over this. This
I disagree.
is no. Watch finish Daredevil and then talk to me about how CW shows even come close to the masterful work that they did with Daredevil. But
I
yeah,
will.
I would honestly put it up there with some of my like I would put it up there with some of like the best like superhero stuff I've ever seen. Like sure it might not come I don't want to put it up with like Infinity War and stuff because there's so much build up there, but if it's more like a standalone, I would probably put it pretty close to the Dark Knight when it comes to
Wow.
just just like how good of like a show they did. Because it's not just a good superhero show, it's a good show. And like the character work is so good and all that, but again,
Well,
I'm ranting about this. I'll get off my high horse.
Well, back on that. Well, kind of on that same token, though. I mean, if you are into superhero shows, not from the not Arrow and the Arrowverse, Gotham is also a very, very good show. My friend,
I've heard.
Yes,
Yeah,
I've watched Gotham like one or
yeah,
two seasons. I liked it.
yeah, my friend Will put me on Gotham, and I thought it was, just a very good show. Obviously, it's about, it's a DC show about Gotham City. Um, you know, has some of the villains and in it, and I thought it
is
was
it a
just a
prequel?
masterpiece. It's essentially an origin story for Batman,
I
like
see.
a
Okay.
long
Yeah.
origin story
It's
with
kind of it's more centered around Jim
with
Gordon though in the
yeah,
Yeah.
what was it? Whatever, the GCPD.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like an
Uh,
origin for Gotham, like as the city. So like it sets up like everything around Batman.
that's a better way to put it because
Yeah.
it sets up, you have like, it gives more to depth about each character. I mean, because it is a show and it has what, like 6 or so seasons, something like that. So it goes into detail about like different characters and how they became who they were. Villains, Bruce Wayne, obviously, Jim Gordon. Yeah, highly recommend. I took you up on Daredevil. It took me a little bit of time, but I took you up on it, so you should try Gotham out. It won't disappoint.
Yeah, I mean, you're choosing a good time to watch Daredevil because I think ultimately Daredevil is here to stay in the MCU. I think it's pretty clear, and that show is probably going to like directly tie into what's going on in the MCU. I'm not really sure they're gonna reboot their character. They'll probably do something similar to how they did Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Um,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people love that scene with Matt Murdock coming in as blind lawyer, but I actually did it took me out of the movie personally. I was like it's rumored that was a reshoot and it felt like it. It felt like they had
Yeah.
to they needed to put something in that first half of the movie. Like here, fan service like right out there. I mean, I thought like him catching the brick and being like, "Yeah, I'm just a really good lawyer" is like absolutely hilarious. But that took me out of the movie, but again, I think it is exciting to see Matt Murdock come in as Daredevil, especially because that show is such a hit. And I think even with the other Marvel TV shows, MCU TV shows that have come out, none of them are better than what Daredevil is. And so I think that's a big reason why he'll probably succeed in the MCU, and it's a big reason they put his little cameo in the movie. But Peter, on your note about just the emotion of No Way Home, I think what this movie does that is probably the best is they like the stakes are really high and like the stakes make sense. It's not over dramatic and it really since Aunt May dies, like that's like the first emotional gut punch where you're like, wow, like that is tough. It's pretty much like seeing Uncle Ben dying, except someone that we've spent more time with in Aunt May. We've seen her for 2 movies. She's in Civil War a little bit. Um, so it's just like it's gut punching to see her die. And you see like Peter's defeat. And I always say like I think the most underrated scene of that movie is Happy telling Peter to run. After he sees that Aunt May is dead and he's getting like arrested. And I think that emotion from there onwards is just crazy. And they don't need to kill people. They don't need to kill all the Avengers and have do the kind of thing they did in Infinity War where like Tom Holland saying like, "Oh, I don't want to go, Mr. Stark." They just make it like these people will forget who you are and all the good memories. And I think that emotional gut punch and that coffee shop scene at the end where he
Oh,
walks in, yeah, just absolutely devastating. But you see like the maturity of Peter Parker, and like I think about like putting myself in those shoes, and I'm like, that would be absolutely devastating, and that's why this movie. I always say that I think that third act is the best thing that the MCU has done. If that third act was the entire movie, it would be by far the best MCU movie, and I genuinely mean that.
yeah. That coffee shop scene. You're so right. That stuck with me so much because like you see how badly he wants to just tell MJ everything. And even Ned sitting there, like he looks back and like that's his best friend. But he like looks and he sees how like they're happy, they got into college, they're living their lives, they're living normal lives now. and
Yeah,
he makes the heroic, the right decision to not tell them, to not involve them with Spider-Man, and it's just so heart wrenching because you want him to be happy, but you know that
yes.
he has to do the right thing, and it's just like, oh my god.
And I don't know like what other people thought. I don't know if this was intentional or not. Like I think everyone thought that like Ned and MJ were gonna get together. Like
I don't know
Ned
why
walks in,
people thought that.
you didn't think that.
I
No,
totally thought that.
I did not.
Yeah,
I
didn't think that
did
for-
wait,
not.
what?
I did not. I did not
not
think that.
for a
I did not.
second.
Wait,
No,
so
I
Jacob,
totally.
did you?
So what my thought process was that when Ned was walking in, the expression and like tone of voice that MJ had was suggesting that they were more than just friends. And since MJ doesn't know about Peter, although she still wears that the necklace that he got her, it just gave me very much so the vibe that they were dating, which would have been awful, it would have sucked for all of us, but I just
Okay, so
totally
I
got
think so. Yeah, from what I'm gathering is Andres, Peter, and Raj. You did not get the impression that they were.
Not at all.
No, not at,
Not at
I
all.
think the opposite actually, because like the way she looks at him, like there's a certain gaze she gives him at the end there, and I think that was the slightest spark of remembrance somehow going against all
Oh, yeah.
impossibility, and that's like I think that I think she's gonna end up with Peter somehow and some way, and that's what I got from that last scene.
Well, then if she, let's say she is dating Ned, simulation of course,
Oh my
then
god.
Not a
she
simulation.
falls in love with Peter, villain arc for Ned. That's the next Spider-Man movie with
You
Venom,
know,
of course.
No way.
Also, I was
Could be a
back
Harry Osborn like kind of thing.
I was calling for Andrew Garfield to be to be evil, and Peter needs the help of the Sinister
my
Six to beat the Spider-Man.
You
But
were.
Peter, I know you got a little bit scared when Andrew Garfield was talking about his his evil past. You turned around in the theater.
Dude,
Well,
I got
dude,
scared.
I genuinely had a heart attack because because he starts almost like talking to himself, and it sounded like a villain monologue where he's like, like I went down this path and I stopped pulling my punches, and he sounded like vaguely similar to like Heath Ledger's Joker, where he's like kind of talking to himself a little bit, and I was like, there's no way this is real. Like Jacob had to have been joking the entire time. So I look back at him and I'm like, don't you dare tell me you're right. Don't you dare tell me that they're gonna make Andrew Garfield evil and like make him put on like the Venom suit or something crazy like that. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. I refuse. Like my brain was flatlining at that moment.
I mean, it would have been a crazy plot twist, and I don't think the movie would have gotten as many high reviews as it had, or as it has. But I mean, it would have been awesome to be right about that. Like, I feel like just
You were
for
just
ego,
throwing
just
something
purely
out there.
for
No,
my ego, it would
no.
have been awesome to be right.
No.
Purely ego. Imagine just saying something that whack and then just being right.
Yeah, that would have been insane. You had to have known spoiler for
Oh
something
my
like
It would have
God.
been.
As someone who sat next to Jacob in the theater, I think when he because he was saying this time, he's like, okay, the Sinister Six, like they're gonna team up with Tom Holland, Spider-Man, they're gonna fight the other Spider-Man. And I was like, man, like this is a take. And slowly as the movie came along, I was like, they were starting to cure people, and I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, Jacob's onto something. I was like, I could totally see it happening. But as soon as Electro started getting a little sus about this like thing going on his chest, I was like, oh, this is not happening. I mean, and that's really when the movie goes into full stride and like becomes like, I think like what makes the whole movie like fantastic. But like Jacob's take at the beginning of the movie was like outlandish. I was like, man, this is like he's like really shooting for it. But as the movie crept along, I was like, I really started to buy it. I was like, oh, like Green Goblin, he kind of seems good right now. I was like, Doc Ock got cured. I was like, they got two people on their side. I was like, they're really gonna do this thing. And so, although ended up being wildly wrong, Jacob, I mean, midway through that movie, I was like, I was buying what you were saying. So
Would have been
I
awesome.
refuse to believe anything he was saying because if he was right, I'd have to walk out the theater.
Just Raj gets up in the
But-
theater and just leaves.
Justin, I was thinking the exact same thing as they were like right when he was starting to cure them and whatnot. But one thing though is speaking of the villains is that wow, I would say Willem Dafoe, his Green Goblin is if not the perfect villain, a damn near perfect villain because he makes you hate him. And he's not just a villain, he's not just evil. He has multi layers. Like you could see the conflict within him. But I think he is wow, like I was blown away. Like he just plays Green Goblin perfectly. Like it's you can't really say like I know a lot of people on the internet have been saying that he's like better than Heath Ledger's Joker, but that's an impossible comparison because Heath Ledger's Joker is not like he's played Joker in a typical way or like a comic book accurate way. He put his own spin on it, but I would say Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin is just spot on, and I think he portrays Green Goblin perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I just like you see when they're curing, you're like, wow, this guy's like really he was really genuine and he just wanted to like help and he was like so there for like Peter Parker, which is great for like especially like the relationship in the original Spider-Man 2002. Like you just thought it was really cool. Like I just thought it was really cool that he was working with Tom Holland, and then to have him instantly like flip was just crazy and like I mean I just thought it was perfect.
Okay, so Jacob, do you need to go real quick?
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I need to head out. I've been sitting, waiting. I have, some other plans to attend to. So, but yeah, I've enjoyed this, being the pilot episode of this podcast, and I think we have a good thing going right here.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time, Jacob.
Saw.
See you guys.
See ya.
So I think
All right.
I think if you don't have any other No Way Home final things to say, I think I want to move on to an interesting thing I saw on Instagram today and get everyone's thoughts on that.
Yes.
Sure.
So I think we can all agree that this year for Marvel has been pretty exciting. Not only have they released a lot of cool stuff, but they've also put out a lot of interesting things. And I think on this pod, we can all agree that No Way Home was the best thing put out in the year
Yes.
No doubt.
in the year 2021. But I think there's a lot of interesting projects that have been released, and I'm going to name them. So we have The Eternals, What If, Black Widow, The Falcon and Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, Loki, WandaVision, Shang-Chi, and Spider-Man No Way Home. And I want to get everyone's opinions on what was the most shocking project of 2021? What impressed you the most? And what maybe didn't hit as hard for you? So maybe starting with Raj, like what do you think about the releases of 2021? What shocked you? What let you down?
What shocked me was honestly, I was kind of shocked by what was it? I mean, granted, Spider-Man, of course, that shocked me the most. But going away from that, what also shocked me was honestly Loki, and like just exploring like, because that was like our first true introduction into like this idea of like what they're gonna do in like was it Phase 4 with the multiverse and everything, and just like how the finale ended with Sylvie screwing everything up and Loki ending up in a TVA that's not the TVA he was in before. Like it just shows like how like it's like slowly all the puzzle pieces are coming together from that one scene we got at the end. I'm honestly very shocked about like what's the future in store because now there's that possibility that will Loki be back in the MCU? Like, did he cheat death again for like what the third time, something like that? But then what let me down the most was honestly the Eternals. Like when we went to see it, I sat there and I just was kind of underwhelmed. Like I was confused probably a little bit of the time. I'm like, what are the point of these guys? I saw no connection to any prior MCU projects besides maybe some like comments about Thanos and stuff like that. But like the Eternals was honestly a letdown, and I don't know what they're gonna do in the future with that or how they're gonna connect it. I want to say they're gonna connect it to Shang-Chi somehow, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think Loki is definitely something where that first episode is absolutely jaw dropping. Like I left that first episode and I was like, man, like they've got something going here. And I think as you go along, I think that's probably the case with all these TV shows the MCU's released where you like besides What If, but like I think you leave these shows like first episode and you're like, man, well you got something good going over here, and then they kind of fizzle out a little bit over the course of the thing. But I think Loki just like broke open the grounds for like a whole different side of the MCU that we haven't seen yet. And I mean, I think you nailed Eternals right on the head. I mean, I think a lot of the problem with Eternals is they tried to fit so many characters into one movie. And I think there are really cool characters in that movie for sure. I'm not going to talk about the Eternals in like a full review, but I think it's definitely good to say. It's definitely safe to say that Eternals was definitely underwhelming for sure.
You can say that again. I think for me personally, I think the thing that probably surprised me the most was Shang-Chi because I really have never heard like of that character like in the comics, whatever, maybe like briefly, but I've never really like followed the character. But and I forget the actor that plays Shang-Chi, but he is
Uh,
so good.
his name is Simu Liu, I
Liu,
think.
yeah,
Yes. Oh
yeah.
my God. He is such a good, like, he carries that movie so well. Where, like, he's clearly, like, this nice, like, kind guy who's, like, a little bit goofy, whatever. But he never comes across as, like, anything like, oh, he's this, lovable goofball, whatever. He doesn't seem cliche in that. Like, he just seems like a really, like, genuine person. But when he also has like his fight scenes, like he does seem like, oh, this dude is scary. Like he will beat the hell out of you. So he's able to really like have that balance between like those different like sides of the character, I think. And because my expectations were at the absolute ground, because I was like, because Black Widow was like okay, and like this movie was kind of like, all right, like let's see what they can do with it. But I think the movie itself was so good because they actually really leaned into like the kung fu, like the martial arts, and they did a lot of it like not I wouldn't say practically because a lot of it was like CGI towards the end, but I think some of my favorite parts were those like actual fight scenes because it reminded me a lot of like the old like Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee movies where it's like this just really good action and it's like like they had like this really good one take I think in the bus where it was like it like was really engaging the entire time where he was like using his jacket like as like a way to like parry attacks and stuff like that and then he like puts the jacket back on like that is so cool. So that was definitely the thing that probably surprised me the most. And then let down. I don't want to beat a dead horse with Eternals, but like that movie was just so boring. Like nothing really seemed to happen. I feel like it's like after the movie ended, it's like okay, now what? Like it doesn't really like it. Like the movie ended, and then it's like okay, like I guess it has some connection now with I guess they're going with whatever Jon Snow's character's name is in that where he's gonna have like the magic sword. But there was certain points in that movie where it just really took me out of it. Like where Icarus just flies into the sun at
Yeah,
the
like
end, like just
that's-
out of nowhere.
yeah,
It's like, why? Like that had nothing to do
yeah.
with anything that was happening.
Like
It was
I get that
ugh.
Marvel wanted to do their little cliche bit with like, ah, Icarus flew too close to the sun, but
It
instead he
was
literally flew into the
like
sun.
he just looks at this girl and just goes, "Okay, bye," and just flies directly into the sun.
Yeah.
It's like, why would you like? You could still like, oh god,
Like
like
you're
it's just moments like that just really ruined it for me.
no, you have unlimited power and like you could do so much good in this world, but like because you feel guilty or you did something wrong, you decided to just commit suicide by flying into the sun.
Even
Like
though I
doesn't
feel like they're gonna pull something where it's like, oh, he didn't actually die. Blah, blah,
he
blah.
didn't actually fly too close to the sun.
He just melted his skin, so he's gonna have a little bit of makeup on. Ooh. Yeah, it was just like I just don't think they knew what they were really doing with that and like how it would connect. It's just like because with the thing is like they've done like space stuff like that. They've done it well before with Guardians of the Galaxy, where like it wasn't connected to anything else. But they did a really good job of just like making good, likable characters that eventually they worked back into the main like storyline and it worked. But this is just like there wasn't any characters that I really like latched onto besides what was the really strong dude? Um,
Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh.
but then he dies. So it's like, okay, who do I have?
Yeah, I
Right.
think the two most likable characters. I'm gonna talk about Eternals again, even though I said I wouldn't. I think one of the two most interesting characters are Gilgamesh and Thena, and one of them has really bad memory loss issues, so you don't really get her full character, and the other one dies. So like your two most likable characters in that entire movie, arguably, are also the two characters that you get to spend not too much time with, or you don't get to see the true versions of themselves. Like I would love to see just a spin-off show of Gilgamesh and Thena living in their little cabin.
Yeah, that would honestly
That would be funny.
more
Yeah.
entertaining than the entirety of Eternals.
And then there's just that one scene, like Peter, you're sitting right next to me when they had the the Indian scenes with what's his name, Kanji, I think.
Oh my god.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
like I know my pre-workout videos can be considered culturally appropriating, but my god, was that that was just hitting all the brown stereotypes I've ever seen.
For
Like that.
context, Raj is Indian.
If you haven't
Very
figured
clear.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, but like just sitting there saying that, like they had the little stereotypical like Bollywood like dance number and everything, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's not even like this anymore.
Yeah, was that at all accurate to anything you have ever seen in India?
Bro, maybe in like the 80s.
Maybe in the 80s.
Yeah.
Now-
Maybe my textbook.
Yeah, like holy
Exactly.
shit.
That's tough.
Oh,
Well,
no.
Andres, what about you?
Actually, hold
Oh,
up,
wait.
before I go on Andres,
Yeah.
my favorite character, we forgot, his assistant.
Oh yes.
Oh my
He was very
God.
lovable. He was very
Wait,
lovable.
actually, you're right. I actually did. I know you hated him, but I really liked him. I really liked him.
He was a wholesome man.
He was, yeah, he was just like kind of like sitting there. He was like, "Oh, I'm happy to be here."
I think he's almost needed in this show. I mean, not in the show, in the movie, because I think it kind of takes the show, like the whole movie is very serious and very like, just very like hard, and I just think that he just kind of like makes everything a little bit better, and I think I want to know the actors. Oh, his name is Harish Patel is the actor, and he just does a great job. I think he's just hilarious, and he plays so well off of, oh man, what's that guy's name?
The
What are they?
comedian.
Yeah,
Kunal
Oh, yeah,
Nanjiani.
Johnny.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
he just plays so well off of him, and I think if it wasn't for him, this movie, like, it would have been a drag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
So let's get your like just thoughts on Eternals out there before I think you're gonna just say it's the most disappointing MCU project of 2021.
I mean, yeah. It's like it's hard. I mean, it's not. You can't really use an excuse for saying, "Oh, we didn't know them," and that's why it's not good. Because look at Guardians of the Galaxy. We didn't know them, and wow, that movie was phenomenal, and we loved all those characters. This movie was just kind of dry. I don't know. It didn't feel like as a standalone movie. It was okay. Like I didn't hate it, but in terms of MCU quality from what we're used to, I think wow, it is down there. It wasn't that enjoyable. There were some cool scenes for sure, but it wasn't that fun of a watch, I have to say. There's no scene that I could be like, wow, that was such a good scene. Nothing that I really remember. Like I can't even remember all the characters' names because it's a pretty forgettable film, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I think like even sitting here, I'm like trying to think of the characters' names, and I'm like, can't get them partly because, oh look, there's so many of them, but also because I haven't cared to go back. I mean, you were like spitting out Tom Holland or Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, like all over the place, no questions asked. But then I gotta come pinpoint these actors' names, and not to their own fault, but it's just kind of a forgettable film. I could have read that list of MCU releases, and if they left Eternals off of it, I don't think I would have been like, oh man, I think they missed Eternals. I just wouldn't have noticed.
honestly,
so
it's a forgettable movie. Like
Yeah.
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 So Andres, is that your most disappointing film of 2021, or do you have another candidate?
I would say yes. Yes, it is. But one thing that is kind of frustrating to me is just the timing of Black Widow. It's that like it wasn't a terrible movie. It's unfortunate that after she died in Endgame, they released the movie. Like so we got to know more about her after she died, and it doesn't really advance like the entirety of the MCU. Like yeah, we get introduced to Yelena, and we get like cool post-credit scenes, which advances the MCU plot slightly into Hawkeye and ties into there, but the entire like the whole movie as a whole doesn't tie into the greater MCU. It's just like a backstory. We're not really making any progress with that whole movie. That was my like issue with it. But as a movie, it wasn't bad. It's Eternal's definitely the worst. It's just the timing of that movie which frustrates me. But there's nothing you can do about that.
And your
Yeah,
most surprising film of 2021?
I would have to go with Shang-Chi. I mean, it was a great introductory like story and film of someone who we didn't know. You have Eternals and Shang-Chi. Of course, you're introducing one character versus many, but I mean, like it like you remember, like it's the opposite. It's a memorable movie. It's a memorable movie. There it is. It's a memorable movie. It is a great movie. Like I was never bored once. I think the flow of it was great. Simu Liu was fantastic. He did a great job he made Shang-Chi someone that I like a lot. Like he's one of my favorite heroes now because of his portrayal of him. And he had humor, he was serious at times, like when he needed to be. The kung fu, once again, I have to say, all the martial arts was awesome. The CGI was great. The soundtrack, oh man, the soundtrack was awesome.
Right.
Yeah,
Track's fire, yeah.
it was great. That was definitely, of course, No Way Home aside, that had to have been my favorite. And as for the shows, it's hard to pick a show. Like they were all good in their own regard. I definitely liked Falcon and Winter Soldier because we get more of Falcon's story and we get to learn more about him and Bucky redemption, I'd say, and I thought that was great. WandaVision had a very weird start, but it became a great show. Like I always like after an episode came out, I just wanted more. I needed more of it, and the same goes for Loki. And What If? I mean, all of them. But if I had to pick a favorite show, I think I'd have to go with Loki, just with the way it sets up the rest of the multiverse coming in, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna beat like the Shang-Chi horse to death. Like here, I think Shang-Chi is. I mean, I think Andres. We were talking about expectations earlier, and
Right.
I remember you going into that theater and saying, "I have no expectations," and I was right there with you. I was like, "What can I expect? I don't know anything about the character. His comics aren't all over the place, so like even the comics he's in, like usually with certain things, you're like, oh well, that's in the Kingpin's in the comics kind of thing."
Yeah.
But knew nothing about Shang-Chi. And I just vividly remember when cause I rewatched Shang-Chi about 2-3 weeks ago. And the beat drop when they walk through the portal to Wong's, to where Wong is. They have this song. It's called. I put it on my I used Apple Music and went and go download it because I thought the song is really good. It's called Fire in the Sky. It's like they use that song to
Oh
lead. And when that song hit, it's not even just a song, but like I was just like, what did I watch? Because I was so in shock of just like a new origin story that didn't have any like I don't think anything in that movie is really like crazy. Like there's not like multiverse. It's not like this crazy magic. It's just like this really well done story. So
I mean,
think
besides
Shang-Chi's
the
great.
dragon at the end, but yeah.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, definitely why it doesn't get like top tier marks for me. But I mean, I think it could possibly be a top 10 MCU project, and I think it's just really well done. So obviously shock. I'm gonna go with here for me. What If I think really did a good job for what I think it was gonna be. I thought What If was gonna be a nice little side MCU thing, kind of just like, oh, here we're just gonna like have some fun, like, oh, what if like Peggy took the super soldier serum? And I thought there would be a lot more like fun, lighthearted ones where it was just like, oh, this would happen, and we'll just poke fun at some like different Marvel things that could be fun to do. And the way they did it and connected them in some like the Doctor Strange episode
Oh my god.
Yeah.
is emotional roller coaster and just this epic project where I'm like, I think that the What If series just gave me something that I was like not expecting in an entirely new way. I mean, I think a lot of them are definitely shocking for sure, but for What If, I just thought it was just going to be this kind of like plucky side TV show that wasn't that big of a deal. And I'm going into season 2 like, what are they going to do next? Like, this is super exciting.
Yeah, I was thinking, that's funny. I was thinking the exact same thing. I thought it was just What If was just some sideshow of different scenarios, but now I know, with the MCU, everything will always be connected somehow. Like, yeah, everything's just always connected.
And then as for most disappointing, Eternals obviously is not great for me. I'm gonna go different here, just to give some other thoughts on things. But Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, not no shade to Sebastian Stan and man, why is Falcons
Anthony
actor
Mackie.
Anthony Mackie, yes. Just no shade to them, but like I just think the plot falls really short. I don't care about the villains. I care a lot more about the dynamic between Bucky and Falcon, and I think just like I rewatching it, I was like disinterested and was like didn't really care about this. I mean, there's some funny moments, but especially after that first episode, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be really cool. I was like, and I didn't get the payoff I wanted to. And then just rolling through, I guess as we end this first episode of the podcast would be, I think Black Widow is a very like mid movie. Eternals obviously disappointing. We talked about What If. I think Hawkeye, I mean, we'll probably talk about it a little bit more in the future as that show just recently ended. But I think again, like you kind of just put it in the same Black Widow tier where I'm like, I don't know what anyone else virtually thinks about Hawkeye.
I personally, I really liked Hawkeye personally, not just because of the fact that they put Kingpin in the end, but I really liked getting to know of his character more. I'm a little worried that they are just like done with Hawkeye after this, that they're just gonna have Kate Bishop be the next Hawkeye, which I think she would do a great job, but I'm a little worried that they're just like, oh, yep, no more Clint, he's done. It's like, oh, okay, I guess he's just done now. Like that's it. Like no like heroic send off, no this, no that. It's kind of just like, yeah, I just lit my suit on fire and now I'm just gonna be sitting in this home in Montana now for the rest of my life. It's like, oh, good. All right.
Yeah, for sure. Go on, Andres.
Yeah, no, I was just as for the end of Hawkeye. I forgot to address it. I thought it was a great show up until Justin, as I know you would agree, the last two episodes where really the ending for me is what kind of messed things up. The ending was underwhelming to say the least, and just Kate Bishop, she's a cool character for sure, but she had a lot of plot armor going up against one of Marvel's big dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was a bit.
Yeah, she should not have survived that fight.
Yeah, I think Hawkeye is something that I think started off really hot. I think fell short in the end. I think I would probably place it similar to where I place maybe a little bit higher than Falcon Winter Soldier. We talked about Loki, just I think blew expectations kind of out of the water. I don't know if it's the most well done show.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of just like breaking what we thought about the MCU and the timelines and stuff, just especially the visuals and like Miss Minutes explaining things, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And then the last thing we have not talked about, although it is my favorite show on this list and maybe my second favorite project on this list.
Here we go.
Jesus. Oh
Here's
my
my
God.
plug about WandaVision because I think it is the first show that comes out. I think they advertise it as this sitcom, and it is really like we have no idea what we are going into. And those first 3 episodes, you are like, what is this? It's a sitcom. And I love sitcoms, so I love the first 3 episodes. And then the 4th episode, I'll never forget watching the 4th episode in my dorm room and being like, and then just revealing everything. I was like, oh my God, like this is what's happening. And for me, WandaVision is probably a top 10 MCU project. I just dug everything about the show. Besides, maybe the finale was a little underwhelming, but other than that, like I dug the show. Just some thoughts on WandaVision. I think it's like one of the only ones that I think it's one of the best well done Marvel projects. It doesn't maybe get talked about as much as it should.
I definitely agree with you that it's definitely more underrated now. I feel like because we've had other shows come out, we've had other projects come out, and now that it's not the only thing we can talk about, I think people do kind of sweep it under the rug, like, oh yeah, it's just one of the Marvel TV shows, whatever. I do think it's one of the better Marvel TV shows. I think I need to go back and rewatch it, honestly, because I do remember really liking it, but I kind of like, yeah, like I kind of just like the ending where it was just kind of like, oh, she's the Scarlet Witch, whatever, and she doesn't really have any repercussions for anything. She kind of just like leaves. It's like, oh, okay, I guess this is just over now. like
Like she kind of trapped an entire city or
yeah,
town.
yeah.
For sure, but also it's like, who the heck's gonna stop her?
Exactly.
Right? Like
And
yeah, we're gonna put her in prison, sure.
Yeah, well, that's actually the really funny part because I thought that's what they were going to do in Multiverse of Madness, and they're just not. Because, like, in the trailer, he goes, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not here to talk about wherever." It's like
Westview.
Westview. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, so we're
I'm here
just
to
not dealing
Westview.
with that. All right, cool. Like, we're just brushing right past that. Like, all right,
You know, entrapping like what, a few hundred
Yeah.
citizens to do your
Yeah,
bidding. You
like,
know,
all right. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. But like again, like I should honestly, I probably should rewatch it because you've been saying that forever that you love it. It's like, all right, I'll give it another shot because I did like the character moments with Wanda and Vision. But yeah, I do think it's definitely underrated right now.
we need Jacob's take on Vision right now.
God,
Oh
no.
yeah.
We'll get that
we-
eventually. Don't you worry.
Whole episode for that one.
Yeah, we'll sure get to episode on Vision. Maybe we'll get another project to drop, but for sure, we definitely need to get Jacob's thoughts on Vision on this pod ASAP.
What is drip if not swag persevering?
Oh
Yes.
my god.
That's
Quality
not
quote right
Vision.
there.
That's not Vision. That's dot Vision.
Yep. Love the ship of Theseus thing in the finale. I think some people
Yeah.
think it takes it out of it. I think it's hilarious.
I liked it.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
I like a little
Final-
philosophical debate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Any final thoughts as we close out the first episode of the podcast?
Right now, no.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
good.
All right. Well, I think that will conclude the first episode of the Washed Athlete podcast. Obviously, we are just getting things going, and we are excited for anyone who listens to hopefully join us on this journey. And hopefully, we will see you next week.